So the first seam that you do on the entire box is that flat edge. All right, so you're just feeding the solder right on that edge. When you're doing these sides, you prop it up just like this. All right, you always want to be right on top of the solder seam. So the solder seam, the seam forms a V. So that's what I mean, the V, just like these. So you'll prop it like this. And this lid top gets done the very same way. You're going to do the lid top just like this. But then when you go to do these sides, you may want to prop it up against a part of the jig, maybe something like this, so that it doesn't fall over, just because the weight of all of this is going to make it want to fall forward every time. So you're going to prop it up like that. You can prop it up with one of the soldering iron holders. You can prop it up with the spool or another wedgie, whichever. But either way, you just want it to be supported when you're doing this. So you can prop it up like that. So just be very careful. But both of these parts, the lid and the box bottom, are soldered the very same way. So you go through, you do your first round of solder all the way around with that flat bit of solder. Then by the time you get back to where you were originally, then this first solder seam should have cooled. You know, all of it will kind of gradually cool. So then the second way of doing your soldering, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So let me adjust my camera so that maybe you guys can see this a little bit better. Not guaranteeing, because it just seems kind of odd the way that the light is hitting it, but we'll see if we can do this. So you are going to do a beveled bead, and this is the way I've come to learn how to do this, through talking to other experts and through my own experience. This takes a little bit of practice, but do this on the box bottom first, because this will be the easier of the two. Straighten out a bit of solder, and you're going to set it right on the edge here. And you're going to do this chopping motion. So you start right on the end and just go very quickly. And all I'm doing is I'm just mashing down right into the piece of solder, right next to where I just did it. And you'll get this nice, smooth, hopefully, bead right in here. If you look, it's raised and it's rounded. All right, so you're going to be doing that. But on all of this, if you need to straighten anything out, you just want to hit the surface and just go very, very light. If you need to do any kind of touch-ups, just hit the surface really quickly. If it goes through, if it keeps going through, what's happening is it's too hot. So let it cool down. Start working on your lid top. That's something to do. Since this is a small enclosed area, it's gonna, all this solder, it's gonna hold the heat in, because metal conducts heat, if you didn't already know that. And so it's going to get really hot. So you want to occasionally stop what you're doing here, move on to your lid top, and then kind of go back and forth. It's the best way to do this. So you'll do a beveled bead on the entire box. Then once you get that done, you're going to want to hit the edges. You're going to want to hit the corners, because that's where it's going to hold water. So you'll just add a little bit of solder right on those edges, right on those corners. And all of these solder seams should be done before you do this. It's one of the last things that you do. So it's just hitting these parts right in here. If you look, oh good, now we've got focus. So that just means that you put it right in this little spot here and dab some solder and blend it in to these seams. So you have this, the whole thing soldered. I'm gonna zoom back out. No, zoom back out. There we go. New camera, can't you tell? Once you've got all the soldering done on the outside, hey, look, you don't have to tin anything. But if you have any big blobs of solder on the inside, you will want to clean those up. And you'll want to hold your iron so that it's just inside, but so that any solder that you will melt out will drop. All right, you're not trying to spread anything around in there. You're trying to get it out of there. So you'll put your iron underneath, and you can kind of look a little bit too, tilt it and kind of peek underneath here, and so that way you can see what you're doing. The very last thing that you're going to do, and this is a craftsmanship thing, you're going to want to edge finish. You're going to put a bead of solder all the way around here and all the way around the inside of the rim. And how you do that, and this is much easier once you've got all these seams filled in right in here, because then the solder's got something to cling on to when it hits those corners. Edge finishing, some people will do it a certain way, and then other people do it another way. And the first way I always do is I always just pick up little dabs of solder that are there, and you just pick up a little bit and just do this tapping and then raise up sort of motion. It's like a touch up, touch and then lift up. So just like that. And you go right next to where you were before. This is the second way of doing it, adding your solder. But you don't want to add too much. If you realize that you've added too much, then take the solder away and spread the existing solder. And so if you see, this is what it's doing. It's putting a nice edge around this. And when you have put a solder, an edge finish around, it really just shows how much you care. And that's what I truly look for. I look for people who are not just blowing through this. And so it makes it gift worthy. So you see what I'm doing here? And the solder should slope all the way around, and it raises it up, but it should be nice and smooth. It should not be all textury. And so it's the same thing right on the inside of this already finished box. This already has a gunmetal patina on it, and so you can kind of see a little bit what's going on. But then once you've got everything all soldered and everything all soldered for your lid top and for your box bottom, then you're going to be finished. You can wash all the inside out. Be very careful about this because your box sides are going to crack. So just, you want to pick any solder out that's not connected to your seam. Sorry, I just digressed there. I saw a big blob. But clean everything out, wash it out really, really well, warm water if your box is still hot. And then you can patina if you want to. Patina the inside and the outside. I always recommend the inside as well because it shows a finished box in craftsmanship. Then you'll wax, and when you wax, you're going to just add wax to your towel. Don't ever put wax on the inside or outside of the box. Just add wax to your towel. Wax the outside first, and then any remaining wax use for the inside, because wax can get really trapped in there and it's a real pain to try and get out. So any remaining wax, and then take a clean part of the towel and buff it until it's shiny, and really let the light glare against your glass to make sure that you've got it all waxed and you've got all the wax buffed off, because it's very easy to start seeing all this green residue from where your wax was. All right, so now you're done officially, ta-da, and you will have a beautiful box that you can give to somebody and is functional. How about that? Ta-da.